Hello and welcome to what would be my first official mock draft of the 2026 NBA draft. We have now moved past the way too early portion and into the ever so slightly informed era on some of these prospects. It's been a crazy fun class so far, and with things still so up in the air NBA wise, I left the order up to a tankathon spin. I will say I took some liberties with this mock draft, plenty of my own opinion in here, but with just how early it is, I figured why the heck not? Let's jump into it. Kicking off the mock is the Sacramento Kings, who jumped 4 spots to nab the number 1 pick, subsequently running to the podium to take Darryn Peterson. Firstly, while the Kings landing the top pick doesn't necessarily seem fun, given other potential options, it is starting to feel plausible. Sacramento is a bottom 5 team currently with a 6-17 record pre-potential fire sale. While they might not land the best odds, they probably won't be needing much to jump to 1. Here they grab Peterson, who is probably the best player they've rostered in several decades. He finally made his return from injury against Missouri, going for 17 points in a game that I felt he was still being a bit tentative regarding his acceleration and burst. Despite some other really great prospects, I still feel pretty strongly about Peterson hearing his name called first on draft night 2026, and here he'd give the Kings a reset point after several years of riding the league's middle ground. Here we have what is quickly becoming the NBA's nightmare scenario, as the Clippers jump up 2 spots to land the OKC Thunder the number 2 overall pick, and they grab Duke forward Cameron Boozer. OKC is 23-1, riding a franchise-high win streak of 15. They possess the reigning MVP, 2 more all-star level players, the best defense of all time, the odds at repeating as champion, and here they nab one of the best basketball prospects in the world via LA. Boozer is a basketball machine, capable of fitting seamlessly with nearly any team, but especially Oklahoma City. So far for the undefeated Blue Devils, he's averaged 23 points, 10 rebounds, nearly 4 assists, and nearly 3 stocks per game on elite efficiency. His quick processing and high-level rebounding especially stand out as thundery skills. He's starting to turn on the gas after earlier flexibility and finishing concerns, most of which have evaporated with his recent dominance. The only remaining question I personally have about Boozer is what role he's going to play, which I would imagine he figures out and is not that big a deal. The Hawks land at number 3 here and get what very well could be the greatest draft consolation prize of all time, regardless of which of the trio lands here, but here they get Dybantsa, who's done just enough to keep himself in number 1 conversations, and in my opinion still has more left to show. Through 8 games, Dybantsa is scoring 19.4 points, nabbing 6.3 boards and dishing 2.6 assists, for all intents and purposes looking like a number 1 pick, aside from the fact that he has real competition. He flies off the screen with all sorts of athleticism at 6'9", and his downhill game and touch all over feels really replicable at every level. I was higher on Dybantsa than most coming into the season, and while he's lived up to the hype in the scoring department, he's left a little to be desired passing the ball and defending. There's still a ton of time for him to show off what I believe he's capable of in those areas, but a guy like Cam Boozer's success in those areas can kind of start to bridge the athletic gap. There's some overlap here between Dybantsa and some other Hawks wings, though they obviously need to just acquire the top talent and make those decisions later. Portland sees the largest jump of the mock, leaping 6 spots to nab North Carolina forward Caleb Wilson. Wilson has been a man possessed so far this season, dunking everything, crashing the boards, and defending with versatility en route to 19 points, 10 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and over 3 stocks. He is an athletic specimen at 6'10" with a potentially enormous wingspan, and the motor that's sure to drive him to impact at any level. There's been some finishing and shooting concerns pop up as we enter this kind of nitpicky era of the scouting season, though I'm far less concerned with Wilson's touch as I am his complete process, which to be honest I think eventually works itself out seeing as he's still 19. I think the Trailblazers could certainly use this infusion of athleticism as well as a potentially high ceiling prospect to pour into. Not that really any team would be keen to pass up on Wilson at number 4 right now anyway. The Wizards get another worst case scenario here in dropping to 5, which has happened to the top odds earner several times now, potentially something to brace for if you're a Washington fan. Despite a drop, they get good news in the selection of Houston guard Kingston Flemings, who seems to be the top riser in the class 1 month in. Flemings was on draft radars as a potential flyer this year, but has instead been borderline unbelievable, thriving in Kelvin Sampson's Houston system from the get-go, which is a tall task. He's averaging just under 16 points, 5 assists, and 2 steals per game for the Cougars, most recently posting 21 and a whopping 8 steals versus Florida State. Flemings has competition at point guard in the class, but his two-way play, along with his obviously high feel, leaves him in good position to become a lottery pick. And if his current production continues, he'll be a shoe-in within the top 5 to 7. The Wizards still need a long-term lead guard, and Fleming feels like a good stylistic fit. The Indiana Pacers are in a down year with Tyrese Halliburton out for the season, Miles Turner off to yellower pastures in free agency, and one of the lengthier injury reports in the league. All that and more has led to just 5 wins in 23 tries and decent draft odds to land a star in their off year. At number 6 in this draft, they take a big gamble in Kentucky big Jaden Quaintance, who has yet to play his sophomore campaign, but has some positive mystery box stuff going on right now. Quaintance averaged 9.4 points, 8 rebounds, 2.6 blocks, and 1.1 steals at just 17 years old for Arizona State, and is now transferred to Kentucky in hopes of coming off that ACL tear to impact the Wildcats this season. Indiana has options here, but taking a defensive-minded big with immense potential as well as great athleticism and physicality feels like a workable play given their style. Quaintance would need to adapt some to fit into 5 out, though he's in the early stages of his development with plenty of room to grow, and he's shown some seldom flashes of outside touch. At number 7, we have the Brooklyn Nets, who have won 3 of 4 games in what I'd consider somewhat of a draft misstep. I think they very blatantly need one of the top 3 prospects moving forward, but presently seem destined to finish behind too many teams, leaving them in spots like this. Regardless, they get one of my favorite prospects in the class here, taking Washington's Hannes Steinbach. This might be a bit rich for Steinbach considering some still have him as a late first to late lottery prospect, but there's a real chance he'll see a big boost as he continues his production, and his playstyle seems to lend itself well to the modern NBA, in my opinion. A 5-star true freshman with a decorated international resume, Steinbach stands at 6'11", and has been one of college basketball's best bigs so far, averaging 18.5 points, 12.8 rebounds, and 2.7 assists. He's shooting 63% overall, largely due to perfect hands, soft touch, and decisive footwork. If anything keeps Steinbach from the top 10, it'll be his defense, though I think he's been good enough so far with room for improvement, and based off the 2025 selections, I think Brooklyn will value him here. At number 8, we have the Charlotte Hornets, who look slightly improved with Con Knippel now helping to lead the charge, and they take Louisville guard Michael Brown Jr. Brown's been one of the top point guard prospects in the class, and his full body of work is likely to keep him in these conversations regardless of how things play out. He got off to a blazing start, but has since cooled some, and his efficiency has dipped along with that. Still, Brown's going to be a process over results guy all season, and his 16.7 points, 5.3 assists with the 2-to-1 ATO, and insanely high volume of threes are going to be tantalizing for NBA organizations. Brown's process could stand to improve, mostly in terms of the shot selection, though I think he'll be a near lock for a top 10 pick. LaMelo Ball's future in Charlotte is uncertain, and honestly, I think that's the right move considering they finally seem to have drafted some core pieces capable of building around. I think grabbing a potentially high-field point guard to pair with Knippel and Ryan Kalkbrenner could be valuable, especially given his passing and shooting ability. Next, we have the Dallas Mavericks, who are likely hoping for another jump to number 1, though they'll have to settle for number 9 here. I have them gambling on the last of the top-tier point guard prospects, this time taking Alabama's LeBaron Philon. Rookie Ryan Nembhard's been a revelation so far in Dallas, averaging 14.8 points and 6.8 assists in his last 6 games, though I'm not quite ready to base future draft selections off his play just yet. With that being the case, I've drafted the team's point guard of the future to pair with Cooper Flagg, who I'd expect the team to start building around sooner rather than later. Philon's quite literally doubled his offensive output as a sophomore at Bama, jumping from 10 points to 21.6 points, boosting his assists per game and raising his efficiency across the board. To me, Philon feels to have a relatively high floor across the board, which is similar to Flagg and would offer a nice running mate in the backcourt. After getting Cameron Boozer at number 2, Oklahoma City miraculously has another lottery pick here at number 9, though this one comes with a caveat. Utah currently sits with the 8th best odds and a top 8 protected first round pick. They are certain to pull levers they have before to keep their pick, though teams like the Pelicans, Wizards, Pacers, and more do already have a real jump on them. But this is OKC's pick for now, and they grab one of the top upperclassmen in college basketball, Florida's Thomas Howe. This is slightly high for Howe, though I'm really keen on his overall impact as a lengthy wing, and OKC can afford to take liberties with a second lottery pick for the defending champs. Howe already proved himself with off-ball scoring, passing, rebounding, and defense for last year's title team, and while Florida isn't quite as good this year, he's raised his scoring production tenfold, and I think he'd slot right in with his present Thunder core. 11th, we have the Milwaukee Bucks, freshly amid new Giannis Antetokounmpo trade rumors, grabbing Tennessee wing Nate Ament. Ament's starting to cool off some in one of the more foreseeable NBA draft storylines of the year. He's had trouble getting separation for his scoring game, and his general efficiency is starting to take a turn to what many thought it would be with the Vols. Despite that, Ament is still a great NBA draft prospect. 6'10", feathery touch, a nice perimeter game, better rebounding than expected, a phenomenal ability to draw fouls. There's gonna be plenty of teams that see him as a worthy project, regardless of what the stats end up as. And while he slipped to number 11 on my mock here due to some situational drafting, I wouldn't count him out of even the top 5. Plenty of NBA front offices just aren't going to see Ament the same way we do. The Bucks could be one of those as they potentially enter a new superstarless era. At number 12, we have the Chicago Bulls, who are now plummeting after a hot 5-0 start to the year. They've lost 7 in a row, sit at 9-14, and there's a few teams league-wide who are seeing a worse stretch than them presently. With their late lotto selection, they take Arizona's Koa Pete, one of the more interesting gambles in the entire class. At 6'8", Pete's averaging 16 points, 5.5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 stocks per game, shooting 56% overall and anchoring one of the best teams in the country, undefeated number 2 Arizona. Despite inarguable production, there's real questions about just what he is. He has yet to hit a three-pointer, only attempting 4 across 8 games, despite a funky and productive mid-range. He's also seen solid passing and defense, though his pretty questionable role could mightily affect just how effective he is overall. Despite that, the bones are there for a high-impact or even star NBA player if things fall his way, and Pete would be a worthy gamble for Chicago at this point in the draft. 13th are the Memphis Grizzlies, who, if they keep it up, won't be selecting here in the lottery. They're 7-3 in their last 10, as they just continue to be one of the best drafting teams in the league, hitting on guys like Zach Edey, Cedric Coward, Jalen Wells, Cam Spencer, and plenty more. Here they get one of the best and most versatile players in college basketball, Michigan's Yaxel Lindeborg. He got off to a slow start after transferring from UAB and also coming off injury, but has since gotten back to his basketball ascendance. He'll be nearly 24 on draft night, making him one of the older prospects selected in some time, and surely scaring away plenty of lottery or even first-round buyers. But I think his production is simply undeniable. 16 points, 7.6 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 1.3 blocks, and steals apiece while shooting 60% overall, and improving his three-point skill with each game, all at 6'10". I just think Lindeborg's a future impactful pro, and I think there are bound to be NBA teams that see him similarly. Capping off the lottery are the San Antonio Spurs, who are picking via the Hawks selection. Here they take Iowa's Bennett Sturtz, whose range is all over the place right now with fans in the draft space, as well as those who have a hard time seeing real NBA translation. Sturtz is one of the best players in the country, scoring nearly 19 points on 50, 40, 80 splits, and the D2 to NBA pipeline is an oddly successful one. He's an on-ball guard with great handling prowess, seeing a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio with nearly 2 steals per game. San Antonio is obviously very guard-laden right now, with De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, and number 2 pick Dylan Harper, making Sturtz's fit somewhat murky. In my mind though, the Spurs are going to have to shake things up regarding their current batch of point guards that they currently have, and I think in the case that they do, Sturtz would make great insurance as an upperclassman. Kicking off the post-lottery is the Golden State Warriors, who seem to be again occupying the NBA's middle ground this year, in between a few different timelines with little direction on either end. They've made some okay picks in recent years, but haven't yet found themselves in position to get really drastically better at the draft. Here they take one of the top international prospects in NBL forward Kareem Lopez, a flashy prospect who could make a year-one impact with room to grow. At 6'8", Lopez has very quietly improved all over for the Breakers in his second season, averaging more points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks in just slightly more minutes, while shooting much better overall and from 3. His shot making and handling seem to be getting better each game, and he's just very generally improving, which is exactly what you want of a young prospect in a pro basketball league. The Warriors likely need to mix things up at the forward position, and Lopez feels like a great swing in this range. After grabbing a scoring wing at number 3, the Atlanta Hawks get another pick here at number 16 via Cleveland and go with Michigan big Ade Mara. Mara's going to be a mixed bag as a prospect for many. Some will see his combination of 7'3" size, skill in scoring and passing, and incredible production across limited time as outright NBA skills. Others will see a lack of perimeter game, some defensive inconsistencies, and failure to play big minutes as a non-starter. I myself land pretty positively with Mara, seeing an offensive rebounding machine who can improve on defense and thrive under a very strict and direct system. The Hawks have seen some success with the 7'3" Porzingis, who, in fairness, is a totally different player, though I still think Atlanta could stand to bolster their front court more for the future. 17th overall, we have the Memphis Grizzlies taking their second prospect, this time via the Suns pick, and grabbing Baylor wing Tunde Yesufu, who has seen an up and down freshman season so far. Yesufu's face value stats are great, nearly 18 points per game, 6 rebounds and over 2 steals while shooting 47% overall and 31% from 3 on high volume, but it doesn't quite tell the picture of how unpolished and inconsistent the Baylor product has been so far. He's seen really high highs like 49 total points on efficient shooting in his last 2 games, and lows such as 11 points on 12 shots versus Creighton or 15 points on 17 shots versus St. John's. He's an offensive work in progress, though his physical dominance and motor are sure to translate over to the NBA quickly, and I like a guy who can succeed even when the ball isn't falling through the hoop. The Grizzlies could be in the market to add some polish to a prospect, which they have done before. The Miami Heat finally select at number 18, taking another gamble on a point guard in hopes of landing their floor general of the future. Arkansas guard Darius Acuff has been better, quicker than most people thought, seeing averages of 17.4 points and 5.4 assists. He's shooting 46% overall and 42% from 3 on good volume, looking like one of the top guards in the class despite love being levied elsewhere. Acuff does have some size and athleticism concerns, ones that I think could be especially apparent at the NBA level, though for now he is shattering expectations and handling the ball for a scrappy Razorbacks team. He does seem to have some heat edge to him, and with Kasparas Yakuchonis having played literally 1 single minute this season, another point guard gamble on a potentially high upside player feels pretty fair here. Big surprise, the Thunder have another first round pick here at number 19, using Philadelphia's first, and they take Virginia Tech's Neoclis Avdalas. The Thunder would use late first picks such as these to backfill future roster spots, and a few years worth of development in OKC's system would likely turn Avdalas into a heck of a player. The 5-star former Greek pro is averaging nearly 13 points and just over 5 assists per game on slightly lower shooting splits than expected, though his skill as a 6'9" guard continues to jump off the page. The Thunder have a track record of boosting the floor and ceiling of 3-point shooters, and that would turn Avdalas into a fun option on the wing as a handler, passer, and shooter. The Hornets took a point guard in the top 10 and will look at a modern forward in the top 20 in Houston's Chris Senac Jr. Most won't look at Senac's current Houston production and consider him a first-round talent, though I'd expect it to get better as the season wears on, and NBA teams will feel differently about a 6'11" player who can play a face-up game and shore up defensive inconsistencies. There has been some tentativeness that likely needs to be turned into aggression on Senac's end, though there is worse output than 10 points and 8 rebounds on 40% 3-point shooting across just 25 minutes. As a true freshman in Kelvin Sampson's system, no less, the fully realized version of Senac would especially be fun in Charlotte's core, rolling next to great passers and stretching the floor next to or in reserve of Ryan Kalkbrenner. The Boston Celtics have looked drastically better than most anticipated, and instead of getting a lottery pick in a potentially down year, it seems they'll again be drafting in the 20s. Here, they take a shot on Duke big man Patrick Ngungba II, genuinely one of the hardest players to predict in this class. Ngungba's seen the sophomore breakout many expected, jumping from a low usage spot player with Duke last year to a high-impact starter alongside Boozer in the front court. He's a 6'11" center with tons of touch and feel, averaging just under 12 points, 6 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and a needed 1.6 blocks. He has got some of the flashiest tape in the class, with eye-catching passes or star-esque jump shots every once in a while. The Celtics have seen some breakout bigs this year, but moving forward, they're still going to need to add depth in this area, and a player like Ngungba who can hit everyone else with big playmaking feels like a fun add. The Toronto Raptors, too, have massively exceeded preseason expectations, jumping out to a decent record with forwards galore. With the 22nd pick, they'll grab UConn guard/wing Braylon Mullins, an archetype they've sought after in recent years. Grady Dick and Jacoby Walter have been fine in their spot roles for the Raptors, but the team still hasn't landed the high-feel, 3-point shooting wizard they desperately want, instead employing multiple bigger players like RJ Barrett and Brandon Ingram. Those guys aren't likely going anywhere, but filling the gaps with a player like Braylon Mullins would be ideal for Toronto's offense and general process. Superstar Anthony Edwards continues to be enough to drive some so-so roster making in Minnesota, though they've yet to hit on a long-time point guard still. Former top 10 pick Rob Dillingham hasn't worked out yet, and veteran Mike Conley continues to slip production-wise. Arkansas's Malik Thomas is more of a handling, slashing two-guard at 6'5", though he has a pop of playmaking that I think could work really well in the Wolves system. His efficiency hasn't yet been great, but he's shooting 35% from 3 on 7 attempts, plays his butt off, and has a 3-to-1 ATO. Playing off of a guy like Acuff, Minnesota could play him off of Edwards and use him as an initiator sparingly with some further development. After finishing first in the Eastern Conference last season, the Cavs have seen an exceptionally messy start to this season, going 14-11 and currently sitting disappointed as the 8th seed. And it's no small secret why. In addition to some general stagnation, they're just not shooting the ball very well. They're the 9th worst shooting team in the league percentage-wise, despite being 3rd in frequency. Picking Isaiah Evans from Duke is easy problem solving for Cleveland. He hasn't seen the start he or Blue Devils fans likely wanted in year 2, but he still has some obvious 3-point shooting prowess, taking nearly 7 per game. I would expect his numbers to rise through the season, or in the least NBA spacing to do wonders for his overall game. 25th is the New York Knicks, who are performing about as expected in the East, give or take a few wins. They're 7-1 in their last 8, and I'm personally still expecting them to have more postseason success than some of the other major East teams. Here they get another breakout upperclassman in Baylor's Cameron Carr, who is off to a swelteringly hot start with the Bears. After 2 non-factor seasons with Tennessee, Carr transferred and is now one of the best scorers in the country, averaging 21.8 points on a mix of high-flying slams and hot 3-point shooting. He has an easily translatable offensive game with athleticism and claim to the best shooting tape in the country, and should be able to make a defensive impact too. The Knicks are likely to see a revolving door of back-and-roll players in the next stretch of years, making a do-it-all scoring wing like Carr potentially valuable. The Thunder cap what is an all-time mock draft with the number 26 pick via Houston, taking Valencia Basket's Sergio De La Reyes. The probability of the Thunder adding 4 first-round selections to a team that's already championship caliber is exceptionally slim, meaning they would likely kick this, as well as the 76ers pick down the road to continue bolstering the future, but should they hang on to it, another jumbo guard with stylistic feel such as De La Reyes could certainly make sense. He'd have to really stand out to shine in OKC's system, though they usually do a great job of letting the best rise to the top. The Lakers draft at number 27, and with Luka Doncic now at the helm, it's more important than ever for them to hit on young and pluggable talent. Duke's Dame Sarr doesn't offer premier flash, but could be really serviceable as a role player with the right development track. He's averaging 6.4 points and 1.5 steals in just 20 minutes, though that does not tell the full story about his length, athleticism, defensive ability, and potential 3-point shooting. I really like the Lakers' selection of Adu Thero last season, and Sarr would be another lengthy option to thrive alongside Doncic. At number 28 are the Denver Nuggets, who are off to another hot start under best-in-the-world center Nikola Jokic. Denver opted for a different look this season, grabbing Jonas Valanciunas over the offseason for some front-court versatility. He's a somewhat flawed player, but still has stood out in limited minutes. Here at 28, the Nuggets grab Kentucky's 7-foot center Malachi Marino, who is my best shot at adding a similar, albeit more youthful and potentially more versatile punch. Marino was tagged as a potential one-and-done coming into the season with Kentucky and has been a sole bright spot for the sputtering Wildcats. He's seeing 9.7 points, 7 rebounds, 1.7 assists, and 1.2 blocks per game in just over 21 minutes per, pointing to potential impact in reserve of or even alongside Jokic. At number 29 are the Detroit Pistons, the league's top rising team with rightful MVP candidate Cade Cunningham leading the charge, and a bevy of talented defenders close in tow. Former lotto pick Jalen Duren has been a revelation for them this year, averaging just under 19 points and 11.5 rebounds, though Detroit may need to prepare for a Durenless future given they weren't able to reach an extension with him. Hopefully that is not the case, though the Pistons taking some frontcourt insurance in the form of North Carolina's Inri Vesar isn't the worst idea. The 7-foot Estonian has broken out for North Carolina as a junior, play finishing on the interior, anchoring the paint on the defensive end, adding a dash of playmaking, and even stretching beyond the arc at 44% on 2 3-point attempts per game. Most simply, Vesar is a 7-footer who does a bit of everything, has some edge, and I could see NBA front offices valuing that late in this first round. Washington already grabbed a point guard with their 5th pick, but I like one final try here to cap off our mock. You not only cover your bases at a real position of need, but potentially grab a backup if both work out in Arizona's Braden Burries. Burries has gone under the radar with Pete's success, but he's averaging double-digit points as a true freshman in one of the tougher systems to stand out in, scoring 11.3 points per game and fitting in elsewhere production-wise from the starting lineup. Tommy Lloyd only gives real leash to impactful freshmen, and while Burries has a ways to go, I'd consider him a first-round talent presently. The Wizards could continue to be patient with their prospects, especially after missing out on the top group yet again here.